And welcome back to another episode of the Cool Your Jets podcast. I am PJ Clark. He is Michael Nania. Ben Blessington might be making a Mike Williams I'm coming home video out for the Chargers right now. TBD on that. Michael, what do you want to talk about?
I don't know. Is there anything that happened this week? A game last weekend that may have been mildly interesting in some ways. I don't know. It seemed like a very uneventful week. That's why we aren't here until Thursday.
Yeah, this is nothing going on in Jets land as always. You would think, after firing a coach on a random Tuesday, it would be a really easy week the next week. But no, that's not how this organization works at all. Devonte Adams is a New York Jet on Tuesday, as we predicted last week. Totally crushed it, nailed it to that end. Can't say we totally nailed how it would go down, getting traded first thing Tuesday morning following a depressing, would certainly be a word, defeat on Monday night. Your reactions to now we're living on day 3 of the Devonte Adams era?
It's a very interesting reaction because, and I think a lot of Jets fans were the same way, but it's very apathetic. It's very muted. I think, especially in comparison to what an acquisition of this magnitude should feel like when you get a multi-time Pro Bowl or All Pro, frankly, one of the greatest receivers of all time. I think it's fair to say that, at least in terms of where his peak was at, and especially the duo that he has with Aaron Rodgers, one of the best pass catcher quarterback duos of all time. It feels like I feel like I should be more excited. It feels like Jets fans collectively should be more excited. But the fact that it happened less than 12 hours after what we all witnessed on Monday night, it just felt like it was difficult to be, excited about, because the sting of that loss, the sting of this entire losing streak was still fresh in all of our minds. And it was hard. It just felt like a distraction from the team, almost like, hey, look over here, ignore the 2-4 record in the standings. We got Devonte Adams. But having said all that, it's still only 6 weeks in. There's still a lot of football left to be played. So I've been trying to find the optimism to, be excited about what they have. And just in the sense that, we've seen games with the worst of the worst talent at these positions.
Jermaine Kearse is not walking through that door.
Jermaine Kearse, Ardarius Stewart, Chad Hansen, Andre Roberts, Deontay Burnett, Robbie Anderson, Jameson Crowder being the top receiver. Not a bad player, but your top receiver on the team. Rashad Perriman, all of that. And they have this duo. They have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. It feels like you should be a lot more excited. But, man, these tough losses they're taking their toll. And I've done some soul searching. I've wondered, would I still be doing this if I didn't have to do a podcast, write articles? Would I just change my entire life and ignore the Jets? Obviously, that's not an option for me. I don't think it's an option for any of us.
It's not an option
indebted
for
to
anybody.
this.
Yeah,
that's the reality of it.
No, I'm pretty much in the same boat as you. I was driving to the Met game last night, and I was thinking about it. I was talking to my uncle, and it was just like, I feel so stupid that Devonte Adams is on the Jets, and I don't care. Like it's a
perfect way to sum it up.
So depressing that it has gotten to this point that, like, objectively, as you said, a slam dunk first ballot Hall of Famer demanded a trade to the Jets, and this is not like some stupid Ed Reed, like Matt Forte, like signing a corpse thing. Like, no, right. Devonte Adams can still play. Like, this is still an elite player to go with another elite wide receiver. We can talk about Garrett having another pretty solid game on Monday night. That literally, my first reaction was like, is he playing defensive tackle? Is he capable of stopping the run?
I put that tweet out immediately. I think you did too, but I put one out. I was like, oh, can he stop the run? Can he kick? Can he block for the run game? And like, I know, like, I don't want to be that fan, like, oh, complain about it, like, reply to the press conference tweet, like, oh, shut up until you win some games. I know that's not me, but that was my gut reaction to this. Was this does not solve what we're feeling right now, is the fact that this team's on a 3-game losing streak, and the game that they just lost didn't feel like it was because of the receivers, really. In some ways it was.
I do want to have this discussion because this has been a talking point on Twitter. It's been a talking point on WFAN. I've seen this come up a lot. I would love to get your take on it. We have not discussed this previously. We've gone back and forth between the three of us about a lot over the past couple of days. This has not come up yet. Are you of the opinion, as some are, that if Devonte Adams is running those 2 Mike Williams routes the last 2 weeks, the Jets are 4-2 instead of 2-4 currently? Because people truly believe that, and I can't get there.
You're not there. You don't think
I can't
he would have reversed the last 2 games. I mean, the thing with these hypotheticals is I feel like fans tend to ignore that stuff has gone the Jets' way too. Greg Zuerlein's missed field goal against the Broncos doesn't even get to happen if Will Lutz doesn't miss one first. The Jets don't get the go-ahead field goal attempts in the Bills game if Tyler Bass doesn't miss his kicks. So with all these hypotheticals, it's not like the Jets just had these opportunities to win games that they squandered. The other teams missed opportunities too, but in the end, they still won because they just made more plays than the Jets did. And they've been close. They've had opportunities, but they lost. And the Titans game that they won easily could have gone the other way too. You can't just keep that win and talk about reversing the other ones. At the end of the day, they're 2-4. They've earned 2-4. That's not to say that they're playing like a team that's on pace for 5-6 wins or whatever, because, you know, they have been close in these 3 games. They're 1-score losses. So it's not like they're playing like a horrible team, but they are 2-4, and that's what they deserve. So yeah, with hypotheticals like that, I just always try to keep both sides of it in mind, rather than just saying, oh, you're 2-3 plays away from being 5-1 or whatever.
Yeah, I don't. Obviously, Rodgers took a thinly veiled, I don't even know if it was veiled, shot at Mike Williams on Monday night in the press conference, saying that he ran the wrong route and that's why the interception happened. And people were not happy about Mike Williams not coming.
What do you think of that? Are you pro? Are you against those comments?
Listen, if Mike Williams doesn't trip, I had somebody reply to me on Twitter because I completely called the interception. I was all over it. I put out a tweet saying I'm expecting an Aaron Rodgers touchdown drive, so we have a type of interception that was previously unknown to mankind awaiting for us. And then literally 10 minutes later, it happened. I had some guy reply to me being like, Mike Williams didn't trip. It was a bad throw. I don't think it was a great throw. I'm pretty sure if Mike Williams stays on his feet, that ball is caught, right? Do you disagree?
Yeah. I think it's caught. Not amazing. Like, I do think, Rodgers talked about him holding the line, not running the best route. I do feel like even if he did run on the route that he was intended to, it wouldn't have been the best throw, but it was a 50-50 type of ball.
He was open.
Guy.
Like he was not open.
He's coming back to it, and I think it's going into his chest.
Yeah.
So
he was
not like an interception-worthy throw by Rodgers, I don't think.
No, and it's just, again,
insane catch too.
Do I agree with the comments? I don't love the comments, but at the same time, I don't know how much benefit of the doubt Mike Williams has necessarily gotten here. Like, he's looked fine. He made a couple nice catches. That catch in the San Francisco game was great. Like, my follow-up to that, to anybody, would just be like, what were you realistically expecting from Mike Williams? Were you expecting, like, him to be a top-flight receiver again, or were you expecting him to, like, make a couple plays a game? Because I think if your expectations are in check, I think he's done about as much as I would have thought, maybe a little bit better. Like, maybe I would think he has the Lazard stat line versus Lazard, switch those around. But still, like, I don't think Mike Williams has been great. I don't think he's been bad. Do I love like taking the pot shot in the press conference? Not necessarily, but at the same time, like, he was open, he did slip, and if he stays on his feet, that ball's caught.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it because on one hand, every single time a coach or player comes out, the team's struggling and they go out there and they talk up their teammates and how they're going to get better. All fans do is ask for accountability. They're like, stop being so positive, call these guys out. And then the moment it happens, now it's not okay. So on one hand, you finally have a player being honest with the media, talking about what really happened, which is what it seems like people want. And then the moment it happens, they don't want it anymore. So part of me is like that, but the other part understands why we get these cookie cutter answers, because the moment you don't give one, then it turns into a whole fiasco because it just seems like something that should be handled in the locker room. Now, you don't know how that conversation goes in the locker room. Like, maybe he's a great relationship with Mike Williams and Mike Williams understands it and doesn't really care. And maybe he likes being held accountable and he takes that to heart and takes it as a challenge. But at the same time, from a public perspective, it's probably more ideal to just avoid that distraction and give the cookie cutter answer. I got to make a better throw, whatever. So not ideal, not great, but I also think a little overblown in the sense that Rodgers is whatever the media labels him as. So, yeah.
Again, like that comment and obviously the interception, because everybody just wants to clown on Aaron Rodgers at all times, which we should know by now. That comment, I feel like, and we can transition into the game, I guess, kind of this way, feel like it took away from a great Aaron Rodgers game.
Yeah.
Like, he was awesome. He had 294 yards. He was making the throw to Lazard has blown my mind entirely. Just a ridiculous back shoulder throw that should never be there and hits him on the seam. The throw to Wilson in the back of the end zone, he did the Hail Mary, fine, like whatever. And that is a real criticism that I will give, that the offense literally scored 7 points on Hail Mary that you can never expect to actually do. And it was a lucky play. And, 20 points, how much of that was real? All of that. That's a huge break, as you mentioned, that went the Jets' way. But I thought Rodgers was outstanding on Monday night.
Yeah, I think it was one of his cleaner games in terms of accuracy. I feel like the past few games, there have been some misses that aren't characteristic of him. And just in terms of field vision too, I don't feel like he missed a lot. Everything that was there, he took. The money throws, like the Lazard one. And as you said, Hail Mary, like the fact that he's done it so many times now, you give it to him as, there's something to it that he's doing right, but it's still a Hail Mary. But more impressive than that is just that he got in position to do it with the completion before that. So yeah, it was an overall good game, and it does suck that you have to throw that interception on the stat line and damper it. But I feel like Rodgers he's been about what the realistic kind of middle ground was going into this season. He has not been close to an MVP. Like, we did kind of bring that up a few weeks ago. Could he get back into that conversation? He has not.
Well, they were 2-1 3 weeks ago, and now they're 2-4. That's what happens.
That will happen when you lose games. But I wouldn't say he's been great either. But I think he's been about among quarterbacks this year who played. I think he's been about middle of the pack, average, potentially a little bit better. And that's with a couple of bad games that hopefully he doesn't repeat. And now his offensive coordinator, I'm just going to call him the offensive coordinator, is better. They stuck Hackett in the furthest corner away from the field that they possibly could.
I can't believe they gave him a headset and a tablet. It was like, hey man, you're participating. It's fine. It's good.
You got Adams coming in, so he could trend up too, and he's still gradually reacclimating from that injury. So I think there's an upward trajectory as well. We've seen his mobility improve as the weeks have gone along. So I don't think he's been the biggest issue with the offense. He's always going to be pegged as the biggest issue as long as they don't succeed. But in 4 out of 6 games, I feel like he's performed at least solid.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think you're getting, and it is like as you said, like I would say he's probably been in the 12 to 15 ish range of the 32. Like, and that's it should be fine with the skill position players you have and the defense you have. Like that should be good enough. And for whatever reason, it has not been. And has he thrown some costly interceptions? Yeah. Has the accuracy been there, as you said, every step of the way? Not exactly. But there have been some incredible, ridiculous throws that could have never dreamed about until now. That it's the really like the arm talent for me still there. Totally got it. It's really I almost feel like his mind is going a little bit, and it's just the placement and is like, he might be a half second short on a couple of things that he wasn't 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, and I think that connects to the body. Like I think that is a way that aging can manifest itself for a quarterback in a way that's not as obvious. Because I think when players get old, you expect they look slower, they are not as quick. Tyron Smith. But in the case of Aaron Rodgers, like you said, arm talent is still there. The velocity on his throws is amazing. He's throwing it hard. It's accurate. He's throwing across his body. He's throwing on the move. All that is still there. But especially when you're coming off an injury like the one he is coming off of, I think when you sort of have that hesitancy in some of your movements, maybe something hurts a little more or tweaks a little more when you plant that front foot or whatever you're doing, it could cause some of that hesitancy in reading the field, making decisions, things like that. Because pure like brain wise, I'm sure he could go on the on the board in the locker room and read everything the same way as he always has, but, if not better, just because
when it's happening 100 miles an hour in front of you.
But it's going a lot faster the older you get, and that's where I think you could see some of that drop off. And sometimes in the pocket there is a little skittishness. Like there's one sack he took in this game. There was a flea flicker play where I thought had an opportunity to hit Garrett Wilson if he was open threw that immediately, but just hesitated, took the sack. So there are times like that where it feels like his internal clock is a little bit slower. And that is, like I said, that's the way I think aging can come into play. That doesn't look as obvious because it doesn't have to do with him necessarily being slower or more physically limited, but because of decreasing confidence in your body and what you can do, it could cause you to be a couple steps slower on some things.
Yeah, and you mentioned, some things might hurt a little bit more. Some things might hurt a little bit more because the offensive line is not exactly where we thought it was going to be entering the season. Particularly, as you mentioned, Tyron Smith, big time struggle on Monday night, big time struggle the last couple of weeks. Bills pass rush got home often. Rodgers sacked 3 times, hit all over the place. Really, I didn't have Tyron Smith getting bullied by AJ Epinesa on my bingo card for this year, but that is what happened on Monday night. What are your impressions of where this line stands at the current moment and what could possibly be fixed moving forward?
I do think the interior pass protection has been pretty solid throughout the season. I think they deserve credit isolating those 3 guys, but tackle is a problem. When Moses was out at right tackle, Olu struggled at his unnatural position at right tackle. Moses was a little rusty coming back in this game in pass protection, but Tyron Smith he's been the biggest disappointment on the entire team by far. And if you want to make a list of people to blame for why the offense is disappointed, I think you start with him because he was a second team All-Pro last year. Yes, he's old. Yes, he had injury concerns, but I don't think anyone thought if he played each of the first 6 games, no issues whatsoever, that he would perform this poorly. He's given up 5 sacks. He has 5 penalties, including a killer in this game, taking back an Allen touchdown away from the play just because he got beat by Dwayne Smoot on the edge. Like, he looks like the 77 that preceded him at this position. He looks no different at this point, and it's just shocking to see. And I think he's equally shocked because there are plays where he will get burnt and he almost throws his hands up, and just by his body language, it seems like he doesn't understand why he's not making these blocks. It's like it's all falling off all at once is what it seems like. I don't see a fix for him. I don't see him turning it around. I think it's just a matter of when does it become too much to where the coaching staff decides it's time to pull the plug and give Olu a shot at his more natural position.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it really got to that point. I don't know how you bench Tyron Smith, but it doesn't look good. I mean, he's getting beat in multiple ways off the edge. Like you said, it just looks like he's a step and a half slow and is getting beat by, AJ Epinesa is not a speed rusher. It's not a guy that you would think would give a 40-year-old tackle problems in, just straight up quickness. No, like AJ Epinesa is a big dude, a big end, and is just.
He looks like he's 40. He's still only 33.
I can't.
Just the injuries have accelerated it. It's the only thing you could really kind of point to.
I can't believe how just bad it is. And then you look at John Simpson had, the game of his life on Monday. Him and Tippmann were picking up stunts left and right, and I feel like that is contributing to the Rodgers skittishness. It almost has to, because you just know that a couple times a game, your blind side is getting beat like a drum, and you have no chance to get the ball out there.
It's just grade A awful. It's not even like, oh, he's a little underwhelming for Tyron Smith. He's suffering the worst type of losses that you could have for a left tackle, the type of losses that you pay left tackles to not give up. It's why we have the blindside movie. It's why we call it that, is to not give up these sacks where the quarterback is just getting crushed in his back when he can't see it. And Tyron Smith, those are the sacks he's been giving up this season since the first game. Mm-hmm. Clean off the edge, speed rush around the corner, untouched, under 2.5 seconds, boom. Nothing the quarterback can do about it. And even some of the worst tackles in the league don't really give those up. They'll get bull rushed. They'll give up stuff to the inside. They'll give up stunts. But most guys in the league are at least competent enough to catch up around the corner and make sure that doesn't happen. But he's just so slow now that it's like once a game you expect it's going to happen. Even if it's not a sack, you'll get a hit off of that blind side. And it's the last thing you need.
No, we can't afford a lot of hits these days.
So I think they can bench him at some point. I know it's like the idea of benching Tyron Smith, who will be in the Hall of Fame.
Do you have faith that Olu will be better?
Making this year. That's the question that the coaches have to ask themselves. And at what point do you ask that? Because it's only 6 games right now. I understand that. I don't expect them to do it right now because it is only 6 games. But realistically, looking at why he's struggling, it's not like he missed a couple stunts or anything. He's just clearly slow. It's hard to see him getting better. So at what point do you have that conversation? And are they confident enough in Olu that he is a clear upgrade over Tyron at this point? I give it a couple more games. We'll see what happens, how bad it gets. If there is a game where it's going to get catastrophically bad, it's definitely this one.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But it's the biggest concern is specifically with the depth chart, take coaching out of the picture, any of that. Just looking at players on the roster, this is their biggest concern because it's just not something that can be fixed. You have a potential solution waiting, but the player itself, it just seems kind of hopeless with Tyron Smith, unfortunately.
Let's talk coaching. Jeff Ulbrich, first game as the head man. Don't necessarily know how many real takeaways you could have from that, other than kicking a field goal from the 3-yard line was kind of bad. But other than that, I don't know. Do you have any big Jeff Ulbrich takeaways?
It's interesting. Like, obviously, that was the story of the week, and then this game happens. It kind of feels like Ulbrich has been tossed aside, not really part of the conversation.
I
Because
literally,
guess,
like, Jeff Ulbrich. Does he coach that? Like, I don't know. Like, it doesn't. It almost doesn't matter at this point because it just matters that they need to win games. And now they have Devonte Adams. The whole coach thing blew over in 5 seconds.
it did, but yeah, I don't really know what to take away from Ulbrich in this game. I mean, I do think Todd Downing had a very good debut. I was impressed with what he did. And like you said earlier, like 20 points, one of the touchdowns on a Hail Mary. Obviously, they missed on some points, a couple missed field goals, touchdown they should have had, taken off the board by penalty. So the points and the stats are whatever, but just purely the identity of the team and the way he called the game, he made so many adjustments that they needed to make. A lot more pre-snap motion, highest rate of the season, a lot more 11 personnel, and decreased the 2 tight end sets. He was more unpredictable. He found creative ways to get the ball to Breece Hall, and it led to him having a much more productive game. I felt like the run game was set up better with wider formations and running on pass downs and passing on run downs. Just a lot of things he did really, really well. It was a night and day difference. So to relate that back to Ulbrich, how much does he have to do with that as the head coach? Did he enforce some of these changes, kind of encourage like, hey, let's, be a little more creative, mix it up, whatever. We don't know that, but I do feel comfortable giving Downing a lot of that credit. But as for Ulbrich, I mean, I think, like you said, at this point, it is what it is. He's running the defense. Downing's running the offense. You have the talent. Go win games. It's not really about so much of being a head coach is about your culture year to year, developing talent, all of that. As an interim head coach, I don't really know what we're looking for. Just figure that out on defense, just how you're going to stop the run and take it from there.
Yeah, no, I mean that's all you can do right now is I thought some play designs were great. My favorite play of the whole game was the fake toss to Breece and come around and take Garrett on the screen on the right side was incredible. And they got you a first down. And there was stuff going on that was not there through the first 5 weeks with Hackett. There was outside runs, getting Breece a full head of steam, pitching to the outside, pitching to the short side, getting Simpson out in space, like all of these things that you would think would be, Jets offense, Jets personnel 101, that there wasn't a ton of that through the first 5 weeks. Garrett Wilson is still a focal point in this offense. You had fewer snaps for your favorite player, Brennan Bates. Conklin was banged up. There was a lot of Ruckert snaps, which I'm never really there was one play in the red zone. I forget the exact play. I wish I wrote it down. But that they did run another red zone play in which Jeremy Ruckert was the primary read, which we can throw those out. We don't need to. That's like the 3rd time this year that I don't know when that play is going to work, but I hope one day it does. Outside of that, I thought Downing was great. I thought the defense was interesting. Again, the run game was just Ray Davis breakout game was right there for them. No James Cook, and you have a 4th.
We knew that was going to happen immediately, right?
Yeah.
As soon as we saw Cook was going to be out, we knew random running back.
I love Ray Davis. I think Ray Davis is a great player, but I did not think he was just going to slice through this front line like butter. Like this, I think we might have put too much stock in Mr. Fotu and what he could bring off of IR because he was PFF's worst graded defender. He was not good. Kinlaw was trying to go full Michael Clemens, honestly, and getting any penalty he could possibly get. The defensive line was just, I know Quinnen graded out well and he had a kind of fake sack, but man, the defensive line as a whole was just not their night on Monday and has not been their season to this point.
It was rough. I mean, a lot of it is They just over penetrate so much. Kinlaw, especially, it's just, he picks a gap that he wants to attack, and that's where he's going. And linemen are just going to use that against him, take him out of the play. Boom, there's your gap. I don't get the appeal of Fotu at all, what he's supposed to do. He's not a pass rusher. He's billed as a run stopper based on his body type and the way that he's used, but he's never graded out well or had good metrics against the run, and he gets pushed around in the run game a lot. So I don't know what he does exactly. And I'm asking that question about Michael Clemens still as well, because another big part of this run defense is how often he's giving up the edge. He's knifing inside, letting the running back get to the edge when there isn't someone out there. Sometimes there could be a gap exchange or whatever where the edge guy's going inside, someone else comes around, but sometimes he's doing it and there's no one else there. So it just doesn't make sense to not hold the edge. And then especially like the game-winning play where Allen sealed it at the end, that is such easy money when you have a guy with his body type on the edge and a quarterback like Josh Allen, of which there are so many quarterbacks like him with that type of running ability in the league now. We saw it in the first preseason game against the now juggernaut Washington Commanders, where Jaden Daniels runs I think that was a zone read. I forget if it was, but either way, he ran it towards Clemens. Clemens is never going to outrun one of these quarterbacks to the edge, and teams are going to do that time and time again. They've been doing it for years now, as long as he's been with the team. So there are a lot of weaknesses on this defensive front, and they've been lucky to kind of not be exploited as much as you would think over these first few games. But every now and then, the Niners did it week 1. We saw it here. The Titans for about half the game. Every now and then, you can notice these weaknesses in this defensive front. And it's something that they're going to have to find a way to scheme around, because they try to play vanilla. They want to rely on their 4-man rush, not be creative with the scheme, and just let the talent its way to victory. But when you don't have that talent, it's going to be very predictable and easy to work around for opposing offenses. I think they've done a good job of it. They have blitzed a lot more the last 4 games since Jermaine Johnson went out. The blitz rate's going up. They're trying different things, but it's something that, especially as Ulbrich is now handling head coach duties as well, it's something that he's going to have to try to figure out, is how can he scheme up run defense with run blitzes, gap exchanges, whatever. How can he get more production out of this unit than it's capable of getting on its own if you just continue running the same scheme that's very one-on-one dependent?
Yeah, it is, and Will McDonald, we should add, had another sack. So the franchise record might be in danger. I'm saying that like half facetiously, but it's been a positive.
He's tied for second, and the guy ahead of him is not going to play any more games this year. So
who had that? Listen, man, we need the Will McDonald, Broderick Jones matchup on Sunday night. Like, we need the air to breathe. That would be incredible if it ended up happening. But I agree that it's, you would think, given all of the injuries and Hassan Reddick, who is still on the Jets, technically kind of maybe is allowed to seek a trade, has Drew Rosenhaus, who wants to play for the Jets but doesn't want to play for nobody knows. But given Johnson and Reddick and the edge depth just being depleted, we're sitting here in week 7. I feel better about the pass rush than I do about the run defense, which is a hilarious statement to say. And I really don't know how we got here, because you thought the run defense, it wasn't great last year, obviously, but I never expected it to be this bad. And thank God that Will McDonald has turned into, at the very least, a rotational pass rusher. Because if there was absolutely no juice on this defensive line whatsoever, I'm not sure what you could even say about this defense the way they've played the last couple of weeks.
The saving grace for the run defense is that you have those linebackers behind the front 4 and they've saved a lot of big plays. Like, you look at the numbers, and it doesn't kind of match up with what we feel like. They've only given up 4.3 yards per carry this season. That's 9th best, which is kind of shocking to read. But I think a big reason for that is because of what I just said. I think the linebackers are preventing those 80-yard runs, 60. Guys get through the first level pretty easily on this defense, but because the linebackers are so rangy, they've tackled so well, you're giving up 5 to 10 yards instead of those big ones that are going to spike the yards per carry. So that's a positive. I think that helps them play bend but don't break defense. They've been solid in the red zone for the most part. And when you could do that, that's why it's key to not give up those home runs. So that's a positive part of the run defense. But the first level and just how consistently it's easy to get through that and put together these drives where you're getting 5, you're getting 7, you're getting 11, just back to back to back. It's tough. And it puts a lot of pressure on your run defense or on your red zone defense to be successful and just hold up in the end. And sometimes they've done that well, but it's an issue. But at the very least, they still have one of the best pass defenses in the league. But that's another thing you got to work around now that DJ Reed is probably going to be out this week. Michael Carter, who knows when he's going to be back? He's had lingering issues all year.
We're getting a lot of Eccles snaps, which is always an experience, I would say. Because he's the only guy that's capable of making an interception at this point, but the good is going to come with the bad on Brandon Eccles. So we'll see how that turns out. I did want to mention just the snap shakeout. We were kind of wondering what would happen with CJ Mosley if and when he ever came back. Only 9 snaps for CJ Mosley. It looks like Sherwood has taken that interior job, which, as you mentioned, he's looked really good this year. 10 tackles on Monday night. But how would you have this linebacker situation play out the rest of the year?
Yeah, it was interesting to see him play so little. I mean, I don't know if an injury flared back up or something, or if that was what they actually planned. But I think I'm in support of what they did. I mean, they could go more base to get Mosley out there more often, maybe instead of 3 safeties, especially now that with Chuck Clark out, they won't have as much safety depth to do that anyway. So that's something they could do, get Mosley closer to like 30-40% of the snaps. But I like this decision because Quincy and Sherwood, I think, have been the glue holding this defense together. And neither of them had their greatest game against the Bills, especially against the run. But overall, what they've done in the passing game, what they've done cleaning up for the defensive line and the run game has been essential to holding this defense together. And between the two of them, I think you have as much range and coverage ability as any other linebacker duo in the league. And I think Mosley's still a solid player. And obviously he's a great leader and a great on-field communicator, but I don't think you have as much coverage range and capability with him in there over Sherwood. And it's a passing league. So I do like the move to switch to Sherwood. I think he's earned it at this point with his consistent performance throughout this first 6 games here.
Yeah, I thought Sherwood has looked good. I thought he's looked athletic. You got 2 rangy linebackers out there now. He had a good game in pass rush. PFF credited him with 3 hurries on Monday night. You hate to see a leader of the defense like CJ Mosley kind of go down like that and have a downturn in snaps. And there's no way, if healthy, he's just going to go away. But I feel like given where the run game is at right now, you do make an interesting point on what the safety situation is going to look like moving forward. But I would want the 2 better athletes in the second level to me at linebacker, trying to make the run game slow down a little bit and have the 5 to 10 yard runs and not the home runs, as you were saying before. So as we move now, another primetime game, of course, Sunday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe starting Russell Wilson, maybe starting Justin Fields. It certainly looks like they're going to start Russell Wilson. What are you looking at when you look at the Steelers and know the Jets have to get back on track this week, no matter what?
I did start looking into them earlier today before we started recording this, and I think this is actually a good matchup for the Jets offense because looking into Pittsburgh and the strengths and weaknesses of their defense, They obviously have a great pass rush. We know that. But opposing teams have done a really good job getting the ball out quick against them, and they've been very successful when doing that. The Steelers have given up the second most EPA per dropback on quick passes this year, and they've given up the second fewest on longer dropbacks, over 2.5 seconds. So basically, if you hold the ball against them, you are doomed. The pass rush is going to get you. But if you get it out quickly, with their sort of tackling issues at cornerback, linebacker, they give up a lot of yak on quick throws. That's something the Colts and Cowboys both did really well in their wins over the Steelers. And Aaron Rodgers is as equipped as anyone to exploit that. He's getting the ball out extremely quickly this year, third fastest time to throw in the league at 2.54 seconds. So he's equipped to do it. And now you have Devonte Adams with Garrett Wilson, two guys who are sharp route runners. They can win quickly, make plays after the catch underneath. I think they're in for a good game offensively. I really do, because despite Tyron Smith having to block TJ Watt, if you get the ball out quickly, you prevent that from even happening. And the Steelers haven't shown that they can make you pay for getting the ball out quickly, that they have the tackling and short coverage ability to stop those throws. And the Jets, that's their bread and butter with Rodgers. And it's only going to be more so now that they've Devonte Adams there, who could win as quickly as anyone. So I really like the offensive matchup. And then defensively, I mean, it's hard to tell because it's probably going to be a totally different Steelers offense with Russell Wilson out there. I think that's a win for the Jets that he's playing instead of Fields, because, we know the Jets struggle to stop running quarterbacks. I think Justin Fields would have had a good game scrambling against them, and he's protected the ball this year. He only has one interception. So it's anyone's guess what Russell Wilson's going to do in his first game back here. Although it would probably be a good guess to say he wouldn't play too well, because he hasn't done too much over the past couple of years of note. But I trust the Jets defense to have a bounce back game here in this environment. It just, as with most of their games, comes down to, can the offense take control of a game for once, which they haven't been able to do this year. They came out quickly last game, but then slowed down, then picked it up in the second half. But when can they put 4 quarters together, seize control of the game? I kind of think this might be the game where they do it. As crazy that might be to say against the second-ranked scoring defense, but matchup-wise, it's a really good combination for them, I think.
I'm so thrilled about this Russell Wilson thing. I can't even tell you how excited I am, because there was a play floating around Twitter that, like, their tackles get absolutely cooked just off the line. The pocket is collapsing and Fields just squirts right up the middle for a first down. And if that happens to Russell Wilson, it's over. It's done. Like, could be a big game for. I feel like we say this every week, that this could be a big game for the Jets defensive line. Get the Jets defensive line, get going. Steelers are banged up across the front, banged up on the interior. Quinnen, I'm looking at you. Will McDonald, I'm looking at you. Like, can we just pressure Russell Wilson, who is at this point a statue in the pocket, which is why I don't understand this from a Steelers standpoint. I said before we started recording that if the Jets had a young quarterback that was 4-2 and they decided to bench him for Russell Wilson, I'd be beside myself. I don't really know what they're doing here, but Najee Harris didn't practice on Wednesday. He's got a rib issue. So you're looking at Jaylen Warren. I agree that I think this is a defensive stand game. And then, honestly, if the offense plays like they did on Monday night, I feel like it's a pretty solid game. You got 100 yards from Brees. You had a good Garrett game. You made some nice throws to Lazard, and now you're adding the Devonte Adams sub for Mike Williams, which is certainly an upgrade at this point in the season.
Yeah, I mean, backs are against the wall. I think they're going to come out strong. I know it's hard to be confident in this team, but again, like, I think it's important to reiterate that they're not playing like utter garbage. They lost 3 one-score games, and yes, underwhelming compared to what we expected, especially on offense. I think we definitely thought it would be a cleaner operation, but one score loss to the Bills, one score loss to the consensus number one team in the league, the Vikings. It's not like they're totally incapable of winning these games. I think they're going to come out with their backs against the wall with a major upgrade to their roster. I think they're going to win this game. So should we throw our score predictions in here?
Well, before we do, I did want to ask, what are you realistically expecting from Devonte Adams?
I feel like the expectation should be that his chain reaction impact is greater than his individual impact. I'm not expecting him to come in here and put up the numbers that he put up last time he played with Rodgers. I don't think that's realistic at this point because he probably has slowed down a little bit, and there is some evidence pointing to that. But does the respect that he demands and his route running and just the precision that he does everything on the field with, does all of that make everyone else better? Absolutely. So I'm not expecting him to put up giant numbers, but just by having him there, I think Garrett Wilson's going to get more efficient. I think I was going to say Allen Lazard, but he's kind of been pretty efficient already. You can't make him catch more passes or get rid of some of those drops. That's just going to happen. But I think beyond that, your passes to the running backs, they're going to have more space underneath. Whoever else gets targets in there, if you use Mike Williams some more, if Gibson gets involved, they'll be more efficient. I just think everything else that isn't going to Devonte is going to look crisper because he's going to take on the hard stuff that has not looked crisp with Garrett Wilson for the most part. Got a lot better last game, but there were still a couple tough catches in there that maybe Devonte Adams makes in the same situation, like the one in the end zone between the crowded defenders. It's just the overall everything he does, whether it's a clear out, whether it's just a simple dig over the middle, a back shoulder throw, he's going to do it on time with Rodgers, and it's going to make it a lot tougher for the defense to cover everyone when the number one read is finally on the same page with the quarterback. So, I don't expect gigantic numbers, but I think especially Garrett Wilson is going to become a lot more efficient because he's there. That's where I think the greatest effect is going to come in.
It is cool. It's super cool that the Jets have Devonte Adams and Aaron Rodgers. It is objectively sick that is happening. I wish it was in a better circumstance, but I agree. Like, I think that first, over the middle little slant between the two of them is going to hit so hard, and I'll be back ready to win the Super Bowl on Sunday night, I'm sure. But I do agree that you hope this opens it up for Garrett Wilson and he can take the alpha role. And obviously Devontae is going to get his, but I think this is the best thing for Garrett Wilson that could have possibly happened at this point in the season.
Yeah, and on that note of what you just said, it is sick that they have Aaron Rodgers, Devonte Adams, and Garrett Wilson, and we should be more excited about that. So, like, I wrote an article about this. I put out a stupid tweet at like 10 o'clock last night and a screenshot of Comic Sans,
baby,
because I just had to put these thoughts out. But I've been trying to think about that balance. Like, how do we get excited about this, objectively incredible unit that the Jets have put together here while overcoming the fact that they're 2-4 and we're still reeling from these past 3 losses? And I think the mindset that you have to take is, if this Jets team is going to do what it set out to do before the season and double down on by trading for Adams, which is seriously compete for a championship, make a deep playoff run, they're still going to make the playoffs, even from 2-4 here. If they are the team we thought they're going to be and think they can be, having added Adams, having fired Saleh, having demoted Hackett, they're going to be fine. They will be in the playoffs. They will go 8-3. They will win 10 games. That is essentially guaranteed to get you in the playoffs. And they will go into the playoffs hot as a serious contender. If they end up missing the playoffs, it's not going to be because of these last 3 games and these first 6 games collectively. It's going to be because over these next 11 games, they didn't play like a championship contender. I personally think if they go less go worse than 8-3 over these next 11 games, we are not missing out on anything in the playoffs except for a blowout loss on wild card weekend. So don't worry about these last 3 losses, because if we look back and they miss the playoffs like by a game or 2, and you're like, oh, if only they made the field goal against Denver, made kicks against Buffalo, then they lost 4 games against what is the weakest schedule in the league over the next 11 games based on DVOA. Look at that schedule. If the Jets are a contender, they will win at least 8 games, and they will make the playoff. 8 of the next 11 games, and they'll make the playoffs.
They better win at least 8 games.
So put these 6 behind you. They're 0-0 with no Salah, no Hackett, and Devonte Adams. Go 8-3. If you can do that, everything you want is still in front of you. If you do less than that, then who cares about these first 6 games? Because you're not going anywhere anyway if you can't do that. In this predicament, with the desperation behind you, the talent you have, it's all right in front of you. They're 0-0. Go 8-3. That's the mindset. That's what I've embraced, and that's how I have gotten myself back invested and excited for Sunday Night Football, despite some deep soul searching after that Monday night game, which I've done after every Jets loss this season, but especially that one, where it just
that's
gets
the problem. We
expect
expect them to win every game now.
We do.
They don't, and then it's like, oh man, what are we like? What is any of this? And then you randomly fire a coach, and then you trade a 3rd-round pick for a guy that hasn't showed up, and then you trade another 3rd-round pick for Devonte Adams when you're already 2-4. What's the point of this? Can he stop the run? I don't know. Yeah. It really feels like it's overwhelming, and it spirals out of control some days. And it's been a tough couple weeks in Jets land, I would say. It never stops. It's always going, but the road to 8-3 from here starts Sunday night. What is your score prediction? It sounds like you're ready to go for this.
I was a couple days ago gonna just go the pessimistic route and say the Steelers were gonna win this, but I'm going Jets. Back against the wall. Like I said, good matchup too. I'm not just riding the optimism. I cited facts.
Hit that copium. Hit that copium, baby.
The copium is hitting, but I think the Jets are going to come out and have a decisive one here. I'm going to say 27-13 Jets. Say whatever you want. 27-13 Jets. Are you as optimistic as I?
I was going 23-14. I'm
okay.
Right there with you. I think they come out and put together a real performance on both sides of the ball. They get in the end zone a couple times. They get 23 denotes 3 field goals, which I don't know if I feel great about that at the current juncture of things, but I already said it, so I wasn't really thinking about that. Maybe Riley Patterson.
I didn't think about that either. I got 2 field goals. Maybe I should pump it up 28.
28. All right, whatever. I'm sticking with it.
I'm going 28-13.
Yeah,
4 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns. Like that felt like a lot, is my thing. That's why I wanted to come in at 23, because 4 touchdowns felt like a lot of touchdowns. I don't know. I think they win. I do agree that if Fields was playing, I would be far less confident than I currently am. But I love this Russell Wilson thing. I think it is a total overthinking move for no reason for Tomlin, and I think the Jets are going to be able to take advantage. So keep it locked. JetsXFactor.com. Michael's going to be breaking it down all week. Everybody over there. Follow along on Twitter, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Jets X Factor. But this is it. Backs against the wall. Sunday Night Football in Heinz Field, the house of horrors historically for the New York Jets. Zach Wilson won't be there to gritty.
I was going to say, not Zach Wilson.
We'll see if Devonte Adams can get into the end zone. Keep it in check, people. Aaron Rodgers is a Jet, and he's throwing to Devonte Adams and Garrett Wilson. I'm talking myself into it the longer we go here.
That's right.